everybody. This is Dina Cohn with a million titles. I love it. Dina, my name is Devora Streicher. I am a life coach in Brooklyn. You are a therapist. Tell us a little about yourself and where you live.
I live in Toronto, and I see couples and individuals working on relationships and addictions. That's what I do.
Powerful, powerful. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to do this Erev Shavuos is because, I say my Torahs every day, is because Shavuos is really a marriage. It's between us and Hashem and the Torah. It's very exciting. It's like the ultimate marriage, But in Mishlei, it says, how do you know how to have a relationship with Hashem? We have people. God works through people, right? And every day we have to interact with people. So let's start. Let's start about our relationship with ourselves, because I feel, and there was a fantastic book, and I was trying to find it, and I forgot her name. It's a therapist in Brooklyn that wrote a book about you. In other words, if you want to go into marriage, make sure that you yourself are fabulous, that you really are strong and you know where you're going. So tell us a little about that. Like, how do I work on myself before I get into a relationship?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so I think if you have a certain calmness of self and you are comfortable with who you are and you know yourself. I mean, I love the Myers-Briggs for starters, if you're going to get started on like recognizing your different character traits and how you show up in the world. And so you can better know how to communicate with people too, once you can understand other people also. But if you're focusing on yourself, so for example, if I know that I have a level of introversion, like I'm a little more introverted than extroverted, so I know that if I extrovert for too long, I need downtime. So that understanding of recognizing that I need like a need of mine, also understanding your needs, that for me to show up best in the world, I need to schedule in some time to myself. Otherwise, I get exhausted, and then I'm not so easy to, not that I'm not easy to get along with, but I'm not my best self. And so, anyone I'm with won't get my best self. Like, that's one thing. Or, recognizing that I like being on time. And when someone's later, it'll aggravate me a little bit, but I could recognize that in other people. Say like, okay, this person is more of a creative and possibly later, that's okay. As long as there's awareness of who you are, then your relationships will be better. Your relationship with self, firstly, is fully getting yourself, and then so that you can work on getting and understanding other people and getting along better.
So I once heard something interesting, that you should divide your day into thirds, like a third your job, a third take care of other people, the family, and a third yourself. Make sure every day to do something for yourself. And I once spoke to someone and I said, when I take care of myself, it costs me a lot of money. You go to the spa. She says, it doesn't have to.
Right.
Make a list you enjoy doing that doesn't cost money. Reading. Some people love reading. Some people love exercising, walking. Some things do not have to cost money. And that's what we should do. And I think if you do a little something for yourself every day, I think your relationships are also better.
Yeah,
right?
No, for sure. Absolutely agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Even a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need that coffee in the morning, right?
Right.
I grew up with a mother who drank a few coffees before she said hello to us. So I don't touch coffee in the morning. Like, it's funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
We all have our reasons for what we choose and how we choose them. And yeah, but for me, like that cup of coffee in the morning, or what I do is I wake up very early. I think that got created before, dealing with my family or work or anything. I like reading and sitting quietly with my coffee. And like, that is a pleasure of mine that I pretty much do every single day, like every single day. So, yeah.
Okay, so now that we love ourselves and we know ourselves and we're happy with ourselves, just one thing, because some people have shared with me, I find if you grew up with at least one loving parent, I find you have self-confidence more than someone who's kind of been knocked and maybe wasn't born with that innate self-confidence. Do you have any tip for someone that's struggling with self-confidence on a daily basis?
I heard two questions in what you just asked, and it's actually fascinating. It's commonly known as the gleam in the parent eye. So like some kids, they're born into a world where the parents are looking at them and saying, "Oh wow, Shefala, look what he's doing. He's walking. He's smiling. He's looking that way. Chacham.
When I woke up in the morning, my father said, Dividala, you're so beautiful, because he was Hungarian.
Sweet.
You're so beautiful. Yeah, Tom, beautiful. I have pimples. I didn't even wash Nagelwasser yet, you know?
No, but that gleam in the eye of a parent, it does carry you through life. And, you know, if you look at people who go through challenging circumstances and you wonder, like, why do some crumble? And, you know, and some people just manage them so much, well, superficially better. You know, how well they're actually managing is a whole different conversation. But a lot of it has to do with this sort of inoculation you get as a kid where somebody thinks you're amazing. Like, nothing you, like, wow, just for existing. It's like somebody who recognizes your neshama and says, like, you know, you're great. You don't have to, like, it's not that you don't have to accomplish anything. It's great when we do accomplish anything, but just for living, just because you have a chelik elokal, just because you've got a neshama, you are a mahus, you are someone. And that is actual self-esteem. It means that, yes, I want to accomplish, I want to do more, I want to look better, I want to have more money, I want to learn more torah, I want to, whatever parameter that you're judging yourself on, it's great, it's good, but the bottom line is you are amazing just because you have a little, you have a neshama, so there you are, right? Yeah.
Right. You know,
and the second question you can't remember. Yeah.
Heard that when we wake up in the morning, right away we say that. When we say Moda Ani Lefanacha, Rabba Emunasecha, Hashem believes in me, so I might as well believe in myself. Great, okay.
That's amazing.
Now that we believe in ourselves, now let's start dealing with other people. Like, I'm just curious, in your practice, what are the most common questions and problems? Maybe we could just work on that.
So this one that you just described, this feeling of not good enough, keeps showing up in different ways. So like, and it takes all kinds of turns. Like, there's one presentation of it, say it's a man that feels he's not good enough, so he needs external something to feed himself. So like, either it's the pursuit of money, and like, so, you know, just constantly, it's not bad to want to be successful, but for some, it is who they are. In other words, if they lose money, they have no self-esteem, like it's gone. Or if they, you know, or people who literally use substances to numb out. So even, you know, I wouldn't call it the alcoholic, but somebody who the only way for them to achieve happiness on, say, Shabbos is by getting, you know, drunk. And this is what's showing up most in my office. It's like, you know, families that are, you know, sitting together Shabbos waiting for, you know, the guy to come up from shul, and he just doesn't, because he's just hanging out all day in shul, you know, that, you know, and usually it's stemming from a certain, not, I won't say everybody, but for most, it's like they can't reach simcha without this external something. So why can't they reach simcha? It's because of this shame, a sort of internal shame that I'm not good enough. Like it comes, you know, internet addiction. I see a lot of that. I see even Candy Crush, right? It's like, it's been a lot of, like, we call it avoidant behaviors. It's when I can't, there's also this that shows up, which is similar. If I can't tell you honestly what's bothering me or what my needs are, and I use some avoidant something like Instagram to just scroll and numb out, then that's an avoidant behavior, and that means there is a blockage in our connection then. In other words, I won't connect to my partner fully because there's this other thing in the way. Like, people who are, when they're communicating with you, they're always holding their phone. I think it's most of us now. And I think that there's an energy blockage in some capacity. Like, that's what I see most. For some reason, two great people sitting in front of me, and I'm like, why can't they both see that, you know, they're both great? Or somebody has some kind of acting out something, behavior that is blocking that love between the two of them. That's in a nutshell, I guess. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that's really, really heavy. So did you read any of Rabbi Twersky's books? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's like a long time ago, but yeah.
Asked him, and I personally have gone to his lectures live.
Wow.
So it was very fascinating. meet him. He was already in his 80s and he was vibrant. He said all his 27 books have one theme: self-esteem.
Makes sense.
I really could have written just one book. I just divided it. And it's
Yeah.
really, because what you're telling me, if somebody's not feeling good enough and going for outside stuff, that means that we're back to the self-esteem. So basically how we gain self-esteem is just by doing esteemable acts.
Right.
And connecting to our neshama, which is what the 12-step program. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but Rabbi Twersky said that what Bob and Bill contributed to the world was like the next big thing. Like he was like a big, big fan of it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was telling you about Shais Taub's book, The God of Our Understanding. It's great.
I have to
It's
read.
yeah, it really is good. But there, by the way, there's another self-esteem problem that some people have, which is grandiosity.
Right.
And what's interesting about grandiosity is like usually people will say like, oh, he's only acting that way because he has a low self-esteem. No, there are actual people who, and then, they'll do the name calling of like narcissist or whatever. Sometimes, people actually feel like they are better than everybody else, or at least than their partner, like that they were somehow given some greater understanding of certain things, and like that, the one-upping, we call it the one-upping, and that's been showing up a lot in relationships. That one can get a little scary, like it could, like, it's a spectrum, right, until like say domestic violence, right, which I actually refer out. I don't handle, like, when I feel like I usually do a screening at the beginning to make sure that that's not there, just because it's a virtual practice. I see people from everywhere. So I don't want to do that. I feel like they would need a higher level of care. So yeah, but yeah.
Wow. Okay, great. Okay. So let's continue. So now that I have self-esteem and, we discuss things that come up in your practice, what are some little practical tools in our marriages that we can do? Do you have anything like on the tip of your head that you tell the couples, come back next week, you give them a little homework just to build on a relationship? And are you connected to any Kala teachers? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Like,
I
couples come to you while they're engaged?
So I did some work with mikvah.org, but that's in the works. Like I'm supposed to be making a webinar, but you just reminded me. Yeah, sometimes individual college teachers will. So when there's like addiction, especially like internet addiction, so when a kala will be complaining about something she's seeing, or I've had kalas themselves who have had maybe earlier relationships that are affecting their engaged period, and yeah, so that's them referring out. So yeah, so I do see calls and Chassanim a lot. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So like kind of a preventative, right?
Yeah. So I see usually, sadly, I see usually big, like, quote unquote, bigger issues, or it's usually involving, say, internet addiction, or in other words, the call teachers themselves, I think, can deal with quote unquote normal say relational issues like communication or stuff like that. But when there's an addiction, you usually will need a professional to come in there if there is signs of some sort of addiction. So
right.
Yeah.
Just wondering if how much? Oh, I'm just sorry. Gus got interrupted here. I'm getting ready for Yontif, obviously, Shavuot. As far as marriages go, which is really what I want to talk about, what is the importance of marriage and why should people try to get married? Because in the Gay Chevelle today, with this whole gay and lesbian movement, and I don't even want to use the word transgender, because to me, I don't even want to go there. To me, it's like Hashem made us a certain way and you're trying to play God. Like Hashem is the ultimate, and I believe in that, and I don't want anyone touching with that. But I'm never going to forget, I went to a lecture from Rabbi Shais Taub. He was fantastic. And he explained Hashem made it that the world needs a man and a woman to create. That is the way it's done. In other words, he's going to come home and he might bring the bread and the flour, but she's going to know how to put it together. We each have certain talents. And that's why he told me, like, if you have any divorced friends, try to encourage them to get married again, because He feels that women, in order to reach their best self, I know the singles are upset about this, and they can reach great heights. There's no question about it. But Hashem made the world in such that the mechanisms are for a man and a woman to want to be together. He said an almana, which is very interesting, someone that lost their spouse, he said they kind of have the emotional bank to bank on. So if they need that resource, they can always go to the ATM machine and pull it out. I thought that was interesting. I know.
Cool. That's cool.
But so I wanted to hear your opinion, like why should, there is a fantastic Kala teacher in the 5 towns. I have to try to remember her name, and I sent somebody very close to me there after she was married, because I felt that her Kala teacher really wasn't that phenomenal. Okay. She put a lot of fear in, and I wanted more of love and happiness. And she went to this woman in the 5 towns who was fantastic, and she taught her like she was a Kala. And in the first lesson, she taught her, your job is to be your husband's friend. Re'im Ahuvim. And we were like blown away. Wow, in Borough Park, we've never heard that, And that's really what it is. It's a companionship and a friendship. Now, if you look at your friendships, Tina, I'm sure me too, I have different kind of friends. One friend I go to a Broadway show with, one girl I can go to a shear to. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone, one thinks she loves coffee, the other one doesn't want to waste time on a coffee date.
Right.
So we get along with different kind of friends, right? So I really feel when it comes to marriage also, like I think we need to be a little more open. I think we could marry different kinds of people. It's not like set in stone, I must have that or I must have that.
So, so masculine and feminine energy is like complicated. And I have you said a bunch of different things there, and I had a lot of different thoughts float through my head and all of it. But if you think Torah, so Hashem's relationship with Bnei Israel is it's considered the masculine with the feminine, with Bnei Israel being the feminine, and we're like married to Hashem. It's like, by Kala, like we're coming to get Torah and we're going to be together. But our relationship with Hashem is different. Like there are all different types of relationships that we have with Hashem. Sometimes it's described as a friendship. Sometimes it's described as a father to a son. Sometimes it's described as sometimes you're afraid. And I think our relationship, so what's interesting about masculine and feminine energy, the way it's set up physically is that the woman is the receiver, but without us, nothing can be born, right? So, that concept of how, so does that mean that, he talks, we listen? Like, is that, and it's more complicated than that. It's okay, so he's, bringing home the flour, we're making the bread. But there's also this concept of us, we dive into Hashem to bring down things. So sometimes, and I like to think about this, I didn't actually see this anywhere, but I like to think about it in relationships as sometimes a man could, I don't want to say chas v'shalom that Hashem is stuck, but sometimes the energy's off. Like not that it's off. The Hashem is always creating, but sometimes the bracha is not flowing down. And sometimes you'll see that in a couple where the man is guarded or he's just not giving. So, you'll hear it as the wounded masculine who just is somehow stuck. The job of the woman is not to sit quietly and wait for the receiving of, at least that's, I don't know where it's somewhere it says like we're raging water, like we're supposed to elicit. It's funny in counseling we call it to facilitate change, right? So it's like, how do we facilitate the giving of our partner? And I think that's, yes, there are men who are extremely giving by nature, and I'm not obviously speaking about that, but or they've worked on themselves so that they're giving, or they've learned to be giving, whatever. But there are some men who get stuck, and women, there is something to learn about how to softly elicit something and bring the energy down. In other words, it's not that the male is above the female in regard to bigger, stronger, smarter. That's not what we're saying, because I know that feminists will get upset with that sort of concept. But just physically, if you think about the way the world was designed, again, it's it starts at the man and then it goes to the woman. So often in relationships that break, when I say break, I don't even mean divorce. I'm saying new couple, right? The guy is infatuated. He's in love with her. And, I think God does that to get us into these relationships. It's like, why should you get married? And it's not that it's a lie, but it's sort of like, the doorway in. It's like, and they're, a new chas and kala, they're adorable. They're so, obsessed with each other. And then they're married for a period of time. Either it could be even until their first child. And then bills hit and kids are screaming at night. And then there's the mental load of everything, and there are people arguing, and it's so there's this concept of something, what usually happens, and I honestly think that this is what happens in a lot of couples, not just ones that would call themselves struggling, is that he is actually giving, and he's giving in his way. And then she says, he brings home the flowers, but they're like the cheap ones or whatever. And she says, these, you bought me these stupid flowers. And then his heart breaks just a little, but he doesn't even notice that. But then he learns to pull back and to stop giving. Like, it's like, you get a piece of jewelry and it's like not what you would have chosen. It's not that he was wrong, but he didn't. If you would know me, you would understand that I hate this, and I only like that. And
that I got, you're gonna roll, because my father-in-law was in the jewelry business, and men have the mentality, the bigger it is, it's probably more expensive. So he came home with earrings that were this big. I mean, I was this small. I was 21, 22, big, huge gold earrings, probably for a 40-year-old or a 60-year-old.
Yeah.
Open it up. And just because by nature, I grew up with a father always complimenting, I knew that you just have to be happy with everything that you get. I was like, oh, they are so beautiful. And then the next time I was with him, I wore it, but they were ridiculous. The earrings,
That's also a tricky dynamic, because
right.
on the one hand, we want to be nice,
right.
but you can't lose yourself.
Right.
You can't lose yourself.
Right.
So how can you not offensively, like, you want the energy to keep like moving in your direction. You want him to stay open and giving, not just because he's the giver. He's the mashpia. You're the makabel, right? He's supposed to be continuously giving forever. It's good for him to give, right? But if you're going to say, I love them, then, you're going to be forced to wear earrings you don't like. That's a dynamic that you have to figure out. A lot of people, they like using the term, they used to like using the term codependent. Now it's a dirty word, but like, it used to be that I'm going to, everything's fine. I'm great. And that's not healthy either, right? Like, Malchus, we're supposed to be, we're not lower. I don't know how to explain the feminine energy being, you're basically supposed to take all the ingredients and make a kugel out of it, right? Or like, so, if you're getting things that don't work for you, you have to softly be able to respond. And I think we can, learn to be loving and kind and soft in our expression of, oh, wow, I could see why you would have loved these earrings. I just want to let you know I'm little, and let me take you to the jewelry store and teach you a little bit about what I like. And then, and you say it softly and kindly and sweetly, and you show him. You have to teach him. See, that's in every aspect. Like, you need to show him what you like, because, if you're going to properly receive, it has to be something you want to receive. Like, and he needs to learn how to give you what it is that you want.
You're kind of reminding me of the Laura Doyle method. I'm sure you've heard her podcast and read her books. So she originally wrote the book, The Surrendered Wife, and the title didn't go over that well. So they changed it to The Empowered Wife. And my daughter gives classes in that in Lakewood, and they're soaking it up, because basically when a woman is going to respect a man, because that's what a man needs, respect. And for every man, it might be something else, but just to respect him, he might just do anything for you. And she's also teaches the girls how to state your desires, which is exactly what you just said. Softly state your desires. This is something that I really would like, and then let go of the results.
Yeah.
However,
so I have mixed feelings about Laura Doyle.
I know a lot of people do, but for some couples it does work.
So
I know.
I think it's almost like, does what medicine works best for you? Well, it depends what your illness is, right? So I think if a woman's suffering from like codependency, theoretically, and she learned this empowered. And I read The Surrendered Wife first, and that one I really didn't like. And then I read I have to like fight. I actually have to fight my internal masculine, right? Because it's my nature to be like, man up. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for me to receive, and but for the person who is yes, dear, sure, whatever, and meanwhile crying, okay, can I leave for 6 days, while you're giving birth? I don't know. There are men who will take advantage.
Right.
Like, I've been seeing, men who really take advantage of super kind women. And like, for them, I would say that the Laura Doyle method is dangerous, right?
I love
it's right.
this illness. You have to know the illness so you can know what the medicine is. Very, 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 very powerful. And I guess that's why reaching out for help is so important also. Again, starting with, I feel, like while they're engaged already, I think that, I always said, just like there's a Daria Sharim test that they test, I was always wondering if there could be a mental illness test or a anger management test that we can do before a couple gets engaged. But so far, there's really nothing in place. But there are a lot of great dating coaches out there. Do you do dating coaching? I'm just curious.
I haven't seen people who have never, like, with first relationships. In other words, I see a lot of people who are divorced who are in the dating pool. Mm-hmm. And then I see people who are, who've had like serious relationships, but then are now dating to get married. Mm-hmm. I actually never dated anybody who is like fresh and like, mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That is not usually, although, yeah, it sounds something like it would be nice.
So much knowledge under your belt. I'm just curious about your schooling because
yeah, it's a little backwards the way I did school. Like, okay, so I was like, in high school, and I wanted to be a speech therapist because that's how old I am, and everybody was becoming a speech therapist. And I was also a math teacher at the same time. I told you this, I think, once, but I was a math teacher at the same time, and I was in a speech program, and I really didn't like it. I didn't like I was watching somebody learn esophageal speech because they had their larynx removed, and I was like, okay, I need to get a master's in something else. And my bachelor's is in psych speech, and then I was like, looking through different programs, and I saw, oh, goody, psychology and math together. It's psychological measurement. I can do testing. This is fun, and I got a master's from NYU 1,000 years ago in psychological measurement or psychometrics, and then when I graduated, I got a job teaching at Torah College, and I taught statistics and psych testing and experimental psych, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But then we moved to Toronto. I used to live in New York. And when I moved here, I was teaching math at the high school, and I also opened a career counseling business. And then I was like, I'm really liking this because I had access to all the tests. So I use I still do career counseling. I love it. I do the strong interest inventory. People take a test. We discuss what, professions they want to go into. And then as I was doing it, they actually call career counseling therapy for virgins. It's for the therapist. It's like it's an easier way to get into counseling without, I was younger, and it was scary, the idea of counseling. And then I went back to school, and I got an addictions license. It's a CSAT for sex addiction. And so I started, you needed to start seeing people for you need to see clients to get this. So I started doing that. And then I realized there's not enough good marriage counseling out there. Like, there is a shortage. So I'm actually back in school now. I'm doing an MSW at Wertzweiler. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's that. But I do like relationship coaching. But yeah.
It's so interesting because I'm so attracted naturally to smart people and people that have gone through so much education. It was very, very cute. I once wanted to go to a bungalow colony for the summer. I wanted to rent a unit. So another friend of mine said, like, you're going to go to that place? Like, I don't know. And then I named her 4 or 5 fabulous girls in the colony. One was a social worker, one that started an infertility group. And as I'm listing, these are the people that I'm going to sit by the pool with. She's like, oh, wow, you know how to pick the good ones. Yeah. the world is so fabulous, and there are so many amazing people, especially from, and on Instagram. Like, how do I even know you, Dina?
Yeah.
From
I watched the live
from
with you.
Batya,
Yeah,
because I had met.
Batya's a good friend. Hey, Batya.
I don't know, but
No.
Yafa Palti said this once, and I was blown away. She says, Instagram is shofar shel Mashiach. And we see it now with October 7th, It's like people that wouldn't even consider themselves Jewish. All of a sudden they're posting, and now the hostages on Matzah Shabbos. Like, who was, I mean,
Yeah,
we all,
I was crying when I
all
opened
of
my
us,
phone. Yeah.
dancing and the singing and the Shevach the Hoda'ah. We were so excited. Like, I have goosebumps just saying it. Like, we're so all connected, and social media took that to another level,
Yeah.
But again, we have to filter it out. You know what I'm saying? We're back to the sense of self, that I have to have self-esteem to know who I am.
Yeah.
What do I in? I'm a Bas Yisrael, or I'm an Eved Hashem. I want to stay committed to the marriage, or I want to stay committed to my family, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we need to wake up in the morning and act accordingly, And that's what the Torah is all about. I just read it from Reb Melech Biderman, that Shavuos is the only holiday that we don't commemorate anything. We're actually going to live it again. We're recommitting. Hashem, I'm here. Yes, we had our Sinai over 3,000 years ago. But Shavuos is again do you know that some Sephardi shuls, they read the ksuba, they read an actual ksuba before Kriyas HaTorah, because they want to show that this is a marriage. This is a marriage that we're going into, and it's fabulous, And
sometimes it's hard. Some of the things, like, you're like, why did God do that, right? Like, and you get and it's a little bit. It reminds you of, like, a marriage when your husband forgets to take the trash out or whatever. I'm being funny, but, like, you know what I mean. It's not always great. It's and that like that understanding.
I
It's, look, but we're together and it's us.
there is a plan. There is a plan. There's a master plan, and we don't know what it is. We don't understand it, but sometimes we always get hugs. Like, I had a baby girl, Anicle, 2 weeks ago, and this week, boy, Anicle. Can I not? Never had that before. So close, like within 2 weeks. I was like, I got a double hug from Hashem. We had a bris, we had a kid. It's like, it was just so special to me. But sometimes in hindsight, when we have a tzara, a problem, a challenge, and we resolve it, sometimes in hindsight, we could see why. The only reason why I'm on Instagram and social media, and I say Advar Torah every morning on WhatsApp, is only because I came home one day, and this is very personal, but I'm going to share it. We went through a financial crisis. Like, literally, I went from overnight having access to whatever I needed to having to slow down. And that's very hard when you're used to a certain lifestyle. Anyone could tell you. When you give tzedakah, you're supposed to give charity on that person's level. And I understand it, because if you're used to, driving a car and not taking the train, it's very hard for you to suddenly not have a car, right? So people giving tzedakah have to understand that. So anyway, so I had to overnight get a job. I was busy raising the kids. My husband was the one always working. So I said, if I have to go to work, let me work somewhere where I enjoy going. And I loved going to the mall, to Brookfield Place.
Right.
Stunning mall. Were you ever there? It's in New York City. It's right near the Freedom Tower, right near Statue of Liberty. Very high-end mall. Louis Vuitton,
Yeah.
Joe Malone, Ferragamo. And I walked into every store. They have beautiful boats there. It's gorgeous over there. The water's there. And I walked in. I said, "Do you need holiday help?" And everybody said, "No, no." And then when I came to Tory Burch, the clothing store, she goes, "We do need holiday help. And could you send me in your resume?" So I had to quickly have my daughter-in-law quickly put something together. I hadn't worked in years. I did have experience in clothing because I grew up with a mother in clothing. So
Wow.
I used to work there Sundays in the store. So that was nice. And I came down for an interview, and she's like, "We're a very modest clothing company." I said, "That's not a problem
Yeah,
for me,
you could do that.
Yeah, she goes, "Well, our salespeople, you can't have anything, like no crazy jewelry, and your hair has to be, shoulder length." I said, "Not a problem." She goes, "No red nail polish, because we like that when you show the bag or the shoes to the customer, they shouldn't be looking at your nails. They should be looking at the bag." I'm like, "Ooh, I'm going to learn a lot here." Anyways, I love the job, but the
How
point,
long were you there
a
for?
couple of years, but then COVID hit. Yeah, I really who did you meet in the store? Because it was right near the Freedom Tower. We had a lot of tourists. And I kept repeating myself. I said, I'm exhausted. I can't say the story over a million times. So my son said, Mommy, put it on your status. I said, what's a WhatsApp status? I didn't know what a status was. He says, don't repeat yourself and don't repeat what you sold. Just post the clothing, whatever. And that's what I did. And then when COVID hit and I was home for 6 months, my kids were in Lakewood. I was in Brooklyn. What am I going to do now? I'm not posting clothing. I'm not selling anything. And I don't have any great stories either. So I started just repeating things that people told me about Rabbanim and COVID and Torah. Anytime I'm like, hey, I love to learn. I haven't learned in years. So my point of the story is, and that's how I got started with this Torah. And then when I went back to work after COVID, I said, I can't do both. Work, make supper, be on time, and do a Torah. But every day I got a compliment. Devora, you gave me such chizuk today. I said, I'll do it again another day.
Right.
So in hindsight, the fact that I had to get a job overnight was a big bracha, because I realized I have this tremendous talent of going to a shir and repeating it in 3 minutes, what I just heard in an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I so sometimes those hardships make us more. I mean, usually you'll see, I think also, like, I'm also attracted to people who have suffered in some way. Also, like your friends at the bungalow colony, like I got that, right? It's usually like, oh, okay, you've been somewhere, you have some like life story, even though most of us have gone through
at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know when you grew up, I don't remember us having like a classroom where so many children either have split parents or didn't have parents at all.
Yeah.
I think a teacher today, when she gets a class list, it's so different than years ago. But more or less everyone in the class had parents alive and parents living together. So
I didn't know that there were more deaths. Are there more deaths now? I don't know.
I don't know.
There were a few, yeah.
So many stories.
But the divorce rate has gone up, and I think the main reason for that is that women are not willing to put up with what they were willing to put. I don't think people really changed that much. I think there were many difficult people for forever and ever, but I think that women could manage on their own better than they used to be.
Right.
And
I'll tell you, also boys. I have a son 30 who's not married yet, a great kid. The boys comes a yontif, they find a Chabad in Hudson Platz, literally. They've been in Colombia, they've been in Barbados, they've been in Cancun. They have a beautiful yontif. They don't have to stay home and do what everyone else is doing. So I think it's like you said, the girls having their jobs and they're going out, and then the boys also. But again, going back to Rabbi Shei's Taub, and marriage is a very, very important component of our lives. We grow through marriage, we really do. I have certain, character traits that you don't, which brings us to my next point of Shavuos. The ultimate relationship a person is ever going to have is with God. And when they build on that relationship, they're really happy. They're really, really happy. When you feed your neshama and not just your guf, because we're all so busy with our guf all day. You run to the dentist, they do your hair, and then it's the nails, and then it's you have to cook because for your body. A whole day we're busy with our guf. We need to tap into the neshama more.
Yeah. I love that you were telling me about the 12 steps. What is the first step? Like you were saying, it's God, right? Like,
listen, the whole idea of 12 steps is, if I'm going to find God, I might put down the bottle, because I'm only reaching for the bottle because I'm trying to fill something. But if I'm filling myself up, I always say, I wish I had a jar in front of me just to show you. A jar has a limited capacity. If you fill it up with bowls, there's only a limited amount of space for water. Like, you only have a certain. So what are you filling your day with? The more gashmias you're filling your day with, you really left for a little ruchnias. Whereas if you fill more spiritual stuff, then you don't have that need for constantly, the running after everything.
Yeah. I mean, the chasing of external. I think that the one interesting thing, and I wonder what you would think about, sometimes you'll find people who are actually very involved with like the spiritual world, like either they're in the yeshivas or rabbanim or teachers of like Navi or whatever, and they still get lost in addiction. So in other words, like God is there and like almost as a main part of their lives, and yet they because my thought on addiction coming from like a lack of connection. In other words, yes, I could like see God and do everything, but like not maybe having a real relationship. I don't know. I'm just talking. I wonder what
Honestly,
you'll say.
I have to tell you that because, life experience. I have a very close friend that waited 10 years for a get. So like I feel like I have so many friends throughout the years. I grew up in Staten Island. I went to school in Brooklyn. I was head counselor in a few camps. So I have like my little variety of knots, all over the place. She waited for a get for 10 years. Now, her ex-husband, comes from a very prestigious family that knows how to learn. Her husband is still in Cola learning. So I hear what you're saying. Happens to be, I think for him, it's a little of a mental illness. I think it's a borderline, a narcissistic borderline, which is very hard to live with. So I think it was just masked with the Torah and with the learning. You
Mhm.
understand? Unfortunately, when she dated him, my mother remembers. I don't remember this, but my mother remembers when I came home from L'chaim. I told my mother she wasn't so happy on the dates, but because she also came from a prestigious family, this was the thing to do. You marry, so my mother reminds me this, and I feel so bad. I was so young, I probably didn't even remember the comment. But today, I think people are more aware, and I think you can't really mask behind it anymore. That's why I really would love to see, and I did actually call someone who's very in the mental health field, and I told him, I think just like this Daria Sharim, we should have a mental health screening, like before you walk down the chuppah.
No, but my question though to you is that okay? So say somebody like scores, I don't know, for anxiety, which is unfortunately most
Right.
of us, right? Like it's like then I was asked to give a talk on like red flags for sex addiction for dating, like for girls, right? And then so I put it up on like this listserv, and it was like, are there red flags? And then people were upset, and it was like potentially if somebody is going to have, I don't know, selfish tendencies, and you want to like screen them for narcissism, like, so then what, you're going to like write off those people from the population? Like, in other words, it's not, so when you're saying a screening like Daria Sharm, in other words, my genes and your genes together is going to cause a narcissist, is that what you mean? Or that
No,
I
no, no. I mean that a person should be healthy enough to get married. Like if they sit with a psychologist, like for that 45 minutes, you know,
oh,
um,
oh,
you know,
I hear what you're saying. So but
when
like
you do this,
suppose they aren't,
what?
then are they, like, suppose a person at that point isn't ready, and then they get like a little red circle next to their name for the shadchanim, and then what, he'll never be able to get married? What if it was like a trauma, like for suppose it was somebody who, so let's say when
So,
people
so
like
suppose
trauma
for
can look like
re-
narcissism.
right? No, no. So why doesn't he just go for a re-screening a year
Oh, and he's
later?
healthier.
The Torah
Okay.
believes that everybody can change.
Right.
There's no question about it. A person can change. I mean, that's what Musar is all about,
Right.
really. I mean, so going back to this person that runs a very big mental health thing, and when I expressed it to him, I said, "What?" He says, "No, no, no. I don't think our biggest problem in the Frum community is the mental health. I think it's more entitlement." I said, "What do you mean by the word entitlement?" He says, "I will give you an example. I run a huge office, a Yingaman, a young guy just left Kollel, and he's coming to me for an interview. He walks into the interview without a hat and without a tie, and he's talking on his phone, on his cell phone, and he's motioning me to wait. Chutzpah.
Right.
You're coming, you're coming for a job, come respectably dressed, turn off your cell phone and walk in." So he was saying when two kids are getting married and they're young, let's say they're in their 20s, and they both feel entitled, it's a recipe for disaster right there.
Yeah.
So yeah. So just going back, that a person really, we need to focus on ourselves, our relationship with ourselves, make ourselves the best self that we can be. And if you need help with that, besides for reading books, if you need to reach out to a mentor or Rav, then by all means do it. Hopefully you'll get into a healthy relationship and marriage. There will be bumps, ups and downs. But like you said, there's different medicine for different illness. And we need to work together. And Hashem might have sent you that spouse because you need to work on more patience and not having everything just so like you like it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Sometimes
like,
when you're
isn't that like the typical
Yeah,
joke?
sometimes when you're in a session and you're watching a couple, you're like, you could see the why. It's weird. It's like you're like, maybe she's rigid and he's so expansive, like with no boundaries. And I'm like, wow, like that's cool. Like how I can imagine how difficult it is for both of them, but yet I could see how they both need to move a little more to the middle there. And like he needs to learn some boundaries and she needs to learn to be more.
So
Yeah.
is there is something that they connected to originally, right?
Usually, a lot of couples will say that they were, and this is a peeve that I have. A lot of couples lately have been saying it's not true. We actually never really were connected. We were forced into it. It's like the crisis of like must get married, and then they were pushed. Get married, get married. You'll develop feelings later, and that is probably the hardest couples I have to work with because they can't remember a time where they actually liked each other very much. And that's very difficult. It's difficult to creating something from nothing is hard, right? It's like,
I'm just wondering what you think of this thought. I just had this thought, just like I find that I could be friends with different types of people. Like do you think if that technically, if someone is healthy enough, that they'll be able to live with mostly anybody?
yeah,
If it's a healthy,
yeah,
yeah. I discovered the book, The Five Love Languages, much, much later. And I wish I would have known it in the beginning because it's really fantastic. Not everybody gets so excited with a compliment. Not everybody even likes gifts, What are your thoughts on this? I think a healthy person can give all five and is able to receive all five. If they have to pick one, yes, let's just try to pick one, Do I like gifts better? Do I like compliments? Do I like the physical touch better? Do I like quality time better?
I think we should be experts on both ourselves and our partners and our kids. Like honestly, I feel like everybody, like in other words, I need to know like what my husband likes, what my husband needs. I shouldn't be superimposing it. I need to ask good questions, get curious, and talk things out because if let's say it's quality time, a lot of men like quality time. Or a lot of people like quality time, right? It's like, and some people, especially me, like I said, I like time alone. So it's like, okay, do a check-in with yourself and you can then give, that quality time. Yeah, I think we all need, to teach our kids to, these things, like these are the rules for a great relationship. Like, listen, don't over talk. Say, especially when you're from Brooklyn, you always like we're always like cutting. I'm also, we cut each other off. But it's like give them the time, the patience. If gifts are not their thing, you can. My husband has something really funny that he figured out a couple of years ago. He has a box of gifts for me. I found the box. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I love like high-end lotions and like perfume, like stuff like that. So he has a box. And when I get angry about something that happens, he has a gift. It's like there and it's ready. And I'm like, no, but he learned like even if I didn't even think gifts were so my love language, but there's something comical about like, he doesn't even let me get fully angry. Like he just says, wait, and he comes running out with like a gift. It's very funny. But like, that's smart. And it's good to get, to sort of have a, somebody like, okay, it's not authentic. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be so authentic all the time. It could be diplomatic too. Like you can think about ways to connect. And if that means, okay, my partner needs me to listen for 20 minutes once a day, make the time, schedule it in. It doesn't matter if it's not your love language. This is what you gotta do.
Great great work with singles, with couples. You know, if someone, let's say someone has a spouse that doesn't want to go for help, that's fine. They could probably come themselves.
It's
Right.
very effective. Individual relationship work. Very, very, it's almost, you know, maybe I'm different than other couples counselors. I like dividing them. Like I don't only see you guys as a couple. Like I'll see each of you individually, because it's important to understand like all the stuff that isn't happening in your mind, you know, and to get clarity on that, and then teach you to communicate that kindly. You know, so we'll find out about him, we'll find out about her, and then the two of you have to figure out, and then sometimes I need to communicate with both of them sitting there, like, this is what she's been saying. How do you feel about that? What are some ways that we can connect better, right? There's a lot of work. I wish it was earlier. People usually come seeing me like 20 seconds before they're divorcing, and I'm like, because
Right.
then we got to get a shovel and we got to like slow everybody down, and that's
That's how
hard.
we operate. We all operate on emergency mode. We're always rushing in the appointment. Believe you me, when I come early to an appointment, even half hour before, I feel like $1,000,000.
Yeah.
You know, in the waiting room, they look at you, wow, like your appointment is, I love it. But I just want to start wrapping it up. So is there anything else that you want to share with everyone? And I'm going to save the live so a lot of people can listen to it while they're cooking for Yontif, or anything else, any last thoughts that you want to give people? Like,
I think it's important to realize that most of us struggle in some way with our relationship, and it's not a dirty little secret. Okay, sometimes there are many times there are bigger relationship issues, but even the ones that are bigger, so many people are struggling with probably if you're listening, what you're struggling with, and the loneliness factor of it is really difficult. Sometimes reaching out to somebody, you know, a support group, a coach, a therapist, somebody who's special. And it may take a few therapists for you to figure out who like gets you, but it is so helpful, just so that you can realize, okay, this isn't so crazy. There are other people that are going through this also, you know, and yeah, I think that's what I'm hoping for in my page. Like that's what I'm hoping for. You read you know, not every post will speak to
right.
you, right? But like, but you know, and I try to mix it up, but like everybody's struggling with something, everyone. And so just know that it is what it is, and there is help. And sometimes it could become better. Also, a second thing is that marriage, it goes up and down, and even if it's not great now, it could change.
Right. Right. There is always hope. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've heard about people like in their, 50s and 60s, all the children get married. I know a particular personal story where the guy just looks at the wife and said, we have a choice. We're going to be miserable like this. I'm not looking at you. Or should we just go for help and we can go traveling together?
Right.
Like, they're so happy today. It's like scary. Sometimes I feel like, why couldn't we do this 30 years ago? Like when we were raising the children, but it is what it is. You know what? Everything is from Hashem. I'm meant to discover you on Instagram now and not 5 years ago. You know what I'm saying? I just moved to a neighborhood now. That's just how it is with life, that Hashem says what we need and when we need it. So I just want to quickly wrap it up on our end, because the live finishes in a few minutes. So let's work on our relationships with ourselves. In 12 steps, they say, I can have a great day whether the alcoholic is drinking or not.
Exactly.
And I have an aunt that's not in any 12-step program, but she always tells me, Devora, what we can do is put an acrylic box around ourselves. So any hurtful comments are coming in, they don't have to come in the box,
Teflon.
Yeah.
Teflon.
We can have a great day. That's the first thing. My relationship with myself has to be great in order for me to have a relationship with other people. The ultimate relationship with which we're coming to with Shavuos is with Hashem. The more we connect to our neshama, truthfully, like, we have to find the connection that works for us. And for me, it's a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of listening to Torah anytime. There are so many shiurim, like, you don't have to pick someone that their voice irritates you, pick someone that you vibe with, and just, you can elevate yourself. And I think once you're elevated, everybody around you just steps up a notch, right?
Absolutely.
It's so great, Dina, seeing you. Have a good Yontif. I'd love to connect with you, sir, because you are so brilliant. I love listening to you.
You too. Thank you.
So many, you're so much knowledge about so many different things. And
thank you. I feel honored.
Great. And you
Thank
just
you.
help the world. You make the world a better place. And it's just great.
You too.
every day's a new day. Every day's a new opportunity. And I hope everybody that listened at least got one little thing, because you brought up so many good stuff.
Yeah, you too. Thank you, Devorah.
Thanks so much. Have a
Right.
great day, and I'm going to save this live.
Great.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay, now we have to figure out how we end the live. Let's do that. I believe we do like that. You sure want to end your live.